Hey, Coach, thanks for watching today as we talk about the next devotional. We're going to go ahead and go with focus this week. We only have 2 weeks left to practice, this week and next week. And remember, we're at First Place Sports Complex on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday for those practices this week. If you have a Friday or Saturday practice, you're still up at Shepherd Gym. But focus. Focus is actually building on the last devotional that we did of surrender. And this focus, the verse is Hebrews 12:2. And it says this in Hebrews 12:2. It says, "We do this by keeping our eyes on Jesus, the champion who initiates and perfects our faith." It says we do this, and it's talking about the verse before, which is Hebrews 12:1. So I'm going to read that to you because it's important as we talk about focus. In Hebrews 12:1, it says, "Therefore, since we are surrounded by such a huge crowd of witnesses to the life of faith, let us strip off every weight that slows us down, especially the sin that so easily trips us up, and let us run with endurance the race that God has set before us." And then our verse, "We do this by keeping our eyes on Jesus, the champion who initiates and perfects our faith." The Christian life, the life that we're trying to lead, what we're trying to do, it involves focus and it involves training. You don't just show up once and get it. We're going to mess up. It's kind of like a batter, a hitter in the Major League Baseball. They mess up 7 out of 10 times and they're considered successful. We're going to mess up a ton, but we're also going to keep training and keep working to try and do things the way the Lord would have us do. And that verse in 12:1 of Hebrews, where it says, "Let us strip off every weight that slows us down." Back in these Bible times, the runners for these long distance races would often run completely naked because they didn't want anything to restrict them. Now, we've changed a little bit in our culture. That's not very appropriate now. But that's what he's referencing here. He's like, take everything off that gets in your way of keeping your eyes on Jesus. And that's where what we talked about, surrender, a couple weeks ago, surrender comes in. You surrender all these things that get in your way from keeping your eyes on Jesus. Now, for us as coaches, it could be a lot different than what our kids need to strip off, to pull away so that we can keep our eyes on Jesus. For us as coaches, it could be a million things. It could be your job that's getting in the way from you looking at Jesus. Could be just your friendships that you have with certain people, that every time you get around them, there's no focus on Christ. The only focus is on worldly things, or even you may get together and it's a specific focus on sinful things that we need to completely get out of our life. So focus, the way that we can get all these things out of our way is by keeping our eyes on the Lord. Now, we don't actually see him, but it's keeping our mind really focused on things of the Lord. I think about the great story in Matthew chapter 15 when Jesus comes walking on the water. And there's only one disciple that's brave enough. The disciples are like, "Oh my goodness, is it a ghost? What's going on out there?" But Jesus says, "Come to me." And Peter, he takes a step over. He's filled with strength and boldness in this moment. And he steps over the edge of the boat and he starts walking on the water in this beautiful picture. His eyes just fixed on Jesus. He's focusing on Jesus. But then what happens is the storm around him, the waves rise up, the wind, everything distracts him, and he loses his focus. He takes his eyes off of Jesus and he starts to sink down into the water. And Jesus has to reach out and grab his hand and pull him to safety. Now, the good news is Jesus is always going to be willing to do that for us. So even if you feel like you're sinking, you can still say, "Lord, help me," and put your focus back on Jesus, because we do that. We look to the side, we look to the left, we look to the right, we lose our focus. But Jesus is always going to be there, even if we slip away. So as you talk about focus this week with the kids, maybe pouring into them that it's okay to make mistakes, but when we do, we need to refocus. We need to keep our eyes on the things of the Lord. Keep our eyes on all these things that we've been talking about. Surrender, God sees. Pretty soon we'll be talking about finishing strong. But anyway, thank you, Coach. I appreciate your work this season. The next couple of weeks may be a little different as we're down in this other gym, but I appreciate your willingness to make it work. So this week, focus on the Lord. If you lose your focus, just lift your head up, pick your eyes back up, and get back on track. All right? See you soon.